Good afternoon. My name is Buffy. For those of you who don't know me and this is your first time joining us, welcome. Happy to have you. I'm a women's lifestyle creator on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And I cover topics. I have two podcasts. One is Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress, which is housed here on YouTube. And then I also have a Grace and Gavel, Where Truth Meets Compassion, which is a true crime podcast. I'm an almost 8 criminal defense attorney. But today we're going to talk about why you didn't see it sooner and it's not what you think. One of the biggest questions people ask is, how did I not see this sooner? I have a theory for that. And I don't know if a lot of you agree with that or not agree with that, but I will say that oftentimes we sometimes don't have the capacity to see things that we're not ready for in our mind and in our heart. And essentially, our mind and our heart protect us until we're ready to be able to see that. For instance, my son was diagnosed with autism a while back. And excuse me. And I was not prepared to see that because I thought he just had sensory issues. And so I literally was like, okay, well, when I called Beats, they were like, oh, yeah, well, you need to see if you have an autism diagnosis. I'm like, my son doesn't have autism. And then we had taken him to swim practice, and just seeing his face, I knew immediately that yes, he did have autism. And it was like that moment that I was finally ready to see that. Not because it was, it was scary. It was the unknown is what it was. And it ended up not being a big deal. He's very intelligent. He's very bright. All that is fine. And some of the things that we sometimes think that we're not prepared for because they're going to be too difficult actually go off without a hitch. And that's where we were. We found our rhythm, we got through things, and that was good. So the other thing too is you need to not be so hard on yourself, because ultimately sometimes you're just not ready to see that. And that's okay. There should be no shame in realizing, hey, I missed that, right? But with the hustle and bustle of the today's living and today's life and things are going from 0 to 60 very quickly, So obviously you're going to have moments that you miss, right? Trying to keep up with everything. If you have children, if you have family members you're taking care of, your job, things like that, trying to live like a balanced life, eating right, being, running and working on yourself. All of those things take up a lot of time. And so sometimes you don't have the bandwidth to be able to cope with everything at once, or you miss things, right? And that's okay. We're all human. We all have moments like that. But you didn't miss this. You weren't naive, right? So the real reason, as I've said, I think is emotional readiness. Sometimes we're just not ready. And until we're ready to see something, we're not going to see it. I wouldn't necessarily call that willful blindness perhaps per se, but I would say that we're just not ready. But once we're ready, excuse me, we will have the capacity to be able to handle that and to overcome that if there's something that requires overcoming. For instance, maybe a bad medical diagnosis. Sometimes we're not ready to actually deal with that. And then when we're finally ready, we're able to get through that and be able to process it and work through it. And timing. Oftentimes it just comes down to timing. What's working, what's not working. And your brain protects you from what you're not ready to process yet. And that's good, right? Because especially completely loading on you, piling up on you is definitely not the way to work through things, right? Especially because you got so much going on and so many things going on. And let's talk about reframing the past. If you think about situations where you know that somebody hasn't been doing what they should have been doing for you, and now you see it, now the pieces fit. I had a scenario recently where someone had spread a false rumor about me. And I was like, that is absolutely not who I am. Ask anybody who knows it. I do not talk poorly about people. I do not do any of that. But it was extremely painful. And it was extremely painful because I was like, this is not true. You know, why is this happening? Why is this going on? And ultimately you find out that sometimes the people you think that you can trust, you can't, right? Which is unfortunate. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so that can change relationships, that can change your trust. I tend to be a pretty trusting person, but I'm like, why am I being drug in the middle of this? Like I have all sorts of issues with certain things right now. You know, I mean, I have an election that I'm helping somebody with. I have, you know, children, 5 children. I have, you know, family member who's sick. And it's like, I don't want to be involved in this drama. I don't do drama. I don't do chaos, and I don't do fake. Right. So if any of those 3 things align together, I want no part of any of it. Right. And so you ultimately realize that person didn't suddenly change. They put on a mask to be who they thought you would want them to be. That's what they did. And likely you weren't the only person who was essentially misled like that, right? Because a lot of people would rather be someone else than show who they actually authentically are. And there are people who are very envious of other people for whatever reason, who are going to show their best side, but then secretly be plotting and you know, gossiping against you. You know what I mean? And so awareness doesn't always arrive when something starts. It arrives when you're able to survive it. And I think that that is very poetic, because it's almost like once you're ready to actually deal with that and survive that, then you can push through it. Then you can overcome it. But you're not ready until you're ready, right? And ultimately think about it like this. This is growth. It is growth to be able to look at the hard things in your life and say, yeah, you know, I've been through a lot of things. You know, my success for overcoming things are 100 for 100. You know, I've got this. I'm working towards this. I've got this, you know, and it's expansion, not failure. You are growing and thriving, not going backwards. You're going forward. And ultimately, in a way, it is kind of a blessing in disguise to know that somebody, once you finally see it, is actually trying to undermine you. That can actually keep you safe, keep you protected, and keep you on track, right? Have you ever looked back and thought, I should have seen it? I think many of us think that. We think, you know, well, why didn't I put together that this person was trying to undermine me? Or why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I say this? You know, and in my scenario, I never heard what I was supposed to have said. I never heard who said it, which I think at least let me defend myself, because I know that I didn't say it. But things are finally working out, thank goodness. So we're good there. The moment is not proof that you failed. It's proof that you're growing. And growing you are, right? Step by step, you were learning, you were growing, you were evolving, which is amazing to be able to have the courage to be able to do that. In painful seasons, in easy seasons, you're growing. You're evolving, you're being who you're meant to be. And you're getting through it like a rock star. So I just want to say thank you all for tuning in today. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And I hope that you'll come back and see me again soon. I do tend to come on live at YouTube Live YouTube Live around 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And then I go to Instagram Live at 1 p.m. Eastern. So thank you for tuning in. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.